No
So
worries.
we are back to the Management Diary. So you're welcome. And tonight I'm hosting one of the top voices when it comes to matter scholarship. I told you the Management Diary is promising to give you the best conversation with scholars and professionals around the world. So this is where you get serious conversations about your career, scholarships, research, and lifestyle. Tonight we are hosting Oluseun Ajayi, otherwise known as Sean, right?
Yes, yes, please.
Welcome to the podcast. He's a doctor, holds a PhD, and he's a multiple award scholarship winner. He spends a lot of time mentoring scholars. So, this conversation, we are going to talk about scholarship, but from the side of money, lifestyle, and mental health. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Always podcasting, trying to share the knowledge out there. You
Yeah.
see, um, when we speak about scholarship, there's a lot of misconceptions going out there and all around. What is
Mm.
it that you've ever had that is the biggest misconception you consider about PhDs and scholarships?
Wow, very profound question. So the misconception, what comes to mind in terms of PhD, the misconception has always been the PhD will get you a job. That's a tall order. I would say in the ecosystem of misconceptions. And then in terms of, I'll break it down. And in terms of scholarships, the misconception generally is that, as an applicant, if you don't have a first class or even a second class upper, you cannot get a scholarship. That is very false. Now, in terms of the PhD, the general misconception is a bandwagon narrative where everyone thinks, look, the next thing for me is a PhD, and then after a PhD, I'm going to get a job. I say this expressly and humbly that there are many PhD holders out there with no jobs. In actual fact, I was saddened by a story of a friend of mine who said to me that his twin sister has got a PhD, but that she's doing some sort of menial jobs here in the UK. These menial jobs, I would consider them dignified. I respect those who do them, but I believe strongly that we can be more. You have come a long way, and you can be more. And I think generally, once you've fed yourself, it's about really feeding yourself, your mind, about what the use of the PhD is. For me, my why for enrolling in a PhD was because I wanted to build critical thinking. The world is in a dire space. We are in I'll use the word perilous times, economically, socially, and other aspects. What a PhD essentially does is that a PhD helps you to widen your thinking horizon, your ability to critically think and become a problem solver. I sit down by the virtue of my PhD training. I sit down with guys from accounting. My area of specialization is in real estate, investment, and finance. But I sit down with people in public health, in technology, in social work, advising, consulting for them. How am I able to do this? The PhD is not really about. So I didn't get lost in the fact that I was doing a PhD in real estate investment and finance. Yeah, I got best paper awards twice. Consequently, but then for me, it was really about the ability to become, a problem solver, and that's what I see myself today. When I get to sit down with people, they've been perhaps thinking and thinking for about 2-3 years what they should do, and a single 45 minutes meeting, listening to them, I'm able to think through what path they should be towing, and that's what a PhD can do. I'm a senior business consultant to different organizations in the United Kingdom and globally. There are other things I'm doing at the moment that the PhD training has really, really helped me to do. So that's one misconceptions. There are many PhD scholars out there, graduates, competing for a certain position. So it's really about strategy. That's a different ballgame. In terms of scholarships, also is also about strategy and having the right mentors around you. What a mentor does for you in the area of scholarship is that the mentor compresses decades of knowledge into actionable wisdom. What that means is that the mentor's insight becomes your foresight. Your mentor can easily tell you, based on the requirements of this scholarship, based on your experience, I'm merging this together, and this is what you should be writing. This is what I know, I'm confident, not that I think, this is what I'm confident that you should be writing. So that has, everyone calls me a genius, and I tell them, no, I'm not. I'm just someone who I've embraced strategy. I've embraced mentorship. I have mentors. The person who mentored my father 48 years ago is my mentor. Is my mentor, an emeritus professor here in the United Kingdom. So those are the two misconceptions, and they are major. So my advice is, please never see a PhD as an avenue to get a job. Rather see a PhD as another opportunity to advance the frontiers in terms of problem solving.
Allow me to call you a genius once again, and I'll tell you why. I started my PhD journey a few years ago, and I was new, and I joined this platform called LinkedIn, and I checked out people who I can learn from, and guess what? Okay, your guess is as good as mine, because now we are here having the conversation.
I'm guilty. Thank you.
But then that gets me to ask. Okay. So, at what point in life did you realize that you wanted to study to a PhD level? And let's go back. I understand you did your masters and bachelors in Nigeria.
Yeah.
How was it like when you were growing up? Allow me to interrupt this conversation and bring something to your attention. Since we launched this podcast a few months ago, we've had over 50,000 people watching our episodes, which we are very thankful for, and over 12,000 hours. However, we are currently trying to build our audience so that we can get the leverage to invite more guests to our podcast, and we can continue bringing more insights. As you can see in one of these slides, and I bet that's here, at least 80.7% of the people watching our podcasts are not subscribers to this channel. And what we are currently focusing on is building our audience. So I'm requesting that if you may like to support us, if you like what we are sharing, you support our channel by clicking that subscribe button so that we can grow. Our promise is to continue bringing you strong guests with more insights so that we can bring these conversations where you are.
So I grew up under professionals, parents who are, they are professionals. My father is an emeritus professor, and my mother is a lawyer, a chief nursing officer, and a public administrator. She's got different degrees, So by implication, there were expectations, and the expectations were weaved around excellence. So academically, I had to be, up there. There was no room for excuse there, because every time at the end of a session, you would hear stories about their own background, what the hurdles they had to pass through, but to eventually succeed. So all of that rang in my head. It's what wired me into what I am today. So my background has always been one wired with excellence. There was no room for excuse. There was no room for they didn't say that I should become a professor, but the environment was it was oozing of, excellence. That look, anything you do whatsoever, you want to become a medical doctor, an academic, whatsoever, excellence is the watchword. And
Not everybody gets to grow in a family under the leadership of a professor. And with two parents who are actually with a very strong academic background. What does it feel like knowing that you're going back home every other day, you're going to sit with this dad who is also a professor and a career-oriented mother? Did it give you like the pressure to want to be a professor? Or at what point then did you decide that I want to venture into academia?
Okay. I think it was, a closure of, or I would say the mix of mentorship also from my father, because my father is my mentor too. I had followed my dad everywhere as a young boy. Then, if he was invited for like a dinner, I would be there with him. Many things, conferences, I would go with him. And I started to learn. I started to see that look, it looks like this is a viable career option. And I, beyond the fancy narrative or nature of the academic sector, I discovered that it was also a job that afforded my father the time to spend time with his family. It afforded him the time or the opportunity to spend time on other things, right? So I wanted a job like that. The fact that I grew up in that family-oriented ecosystem, I was exposed to the values of familyhood. So, and I saw the values of, love within family, taking care of one another. So I was also thinking, I was being futuristic about it. What kind of job? I wanted to become a medical doctor actually, but I think I just didn't like blood, and that was what stopped me from. So I just thought about a job that would afford me the opportunity to spend more time with family and on other things, which is what I'm enjoying today. And it wasn't a pressure, except in some instances where peer pressure themselves those days would influence you in some certain areas of your life at some certain points in your life. But when I get home, I remember that when I get home, my father, my mother, they get so disappointed. I mean, there was I think at some point there was a girl I was dating then, and because I was in a relationship then, I failed the course. But they believed that I should have excelled in that course, not just passed the course. So many things were withdrawn from me then. My car as a year 4 student was withdrawn from me. In fact, as a year 3 student, my car was withdrawn from me. So many things, so many accessories, enjoyment accessories were withdrawn from me. So I think that point was a period that was so much under pressure. And then I think I was now leaning towards just doing what they wanted. But eventually, I discovered my skill, my talent, the ability to stand in front of people and speak to them and even break down very complex concepts. So, and I felt, wow, this is a talent, this is a skill. Why don't I just go into lecturing? So I tried it. Sometimes, you see, our career is an offshoot of our talent, especially what we are drawn to, what draws us. So speaking publicly, being able to stand in front of people and tell them, look, this is not difficult, this is how it is. And I'm saying very difficult and complex concepts. And that was how my journey into academics started.
You see, I was listening to that experience you had during your 3rd and 4th year. Of course, most of us fall into. Okay, it's not actually falling, but it's get attracted to that I mean, like you need some. It is normal
Oh yeah.
as an undergrad student,
Yes.
but then
Mm.
the implications on your part must have had a big impact on you and the way you look at things, the way you look at finances,
Yeah.
and more precisely, now we are looking at you, somebody who was so used to this kind of lifestyle, then suddenly, based on circumstances, things
Mm.
change. Now your lifestyle also probably had to change.
Yeah.
How did that change your perspective and view about money and finances?
Mm. Well, money is very good. I need to establish that finances are also very good because that's one currency that also gives you standing apart from common sense, and apart from God Almighty. But money is very good. Finances, good financial life is very good. But my perspective towards money, um, I wouldn't say it changed. I wouldn't say it changed. But I think I was just seeing it differently because ab initio, for me, it was I'm a son of a professor who had about 6, 7 cars. My father had about 6, 7 cars. In fact, it was the talk of the town that this professor is just buying cars, and he also invested so much money in stereos, gadget, laptops, the latest TV. My father was buying all those things, so we were quite exposed. But later, I think it was now really about, look, it's now time for you to do stuff to attract your own funds. You know what I mean? I could have, taken up other opportunities abroad. I mean, I had to drop a juicy offer to come to the United Kingdom in 2011 for my master's. But I had to drop that for a lecturing job that was even paying less than the other opportunity in the UK. I mean, imagine if I had moved to the UK since 2011. Perhaps my diction would have changed now and I was staying in it and things like that. Who knows? Maybe I would have become a vice chancellor today. But I'm still grateful to God because I rather opted for what will give me a platform for social impact, for change, for progressiveness, for advancing frontiers, which is lecturing. And I mean, today, when you are someone of value, when you are a talent, when you're talented and you are an asset, the funds will definitely come. For instance, because of my training, because of my experience, to the glory of God today, I get paid by consultancy services. I charge about to the tune of £1,500, and people pay. That's the truth. They pay. So for me, it's really not about the money. Just do stuff that will change the world. I mean, in the positive narrative now. I mean, I'm about to announce something big and huge on LinkedIn very shortly. I think this is the first platform I'll be saying that. Um, I'm starting something, a big project, personally, in the United Kingdom. A project that I think most Africans will think is impossible to be done by an African. I'm doing that. It's huge. You hear, and then perhaps you make a comment and say you heard it first from me. It's gonna start in, by God's grace, in maybe a month or 2 months. It's already set, cast in stone, ready to launch by the grace of God. If you ask me, the project is really about social impact. It's not really about the money. I know that the money will come, but it's a movement. It's answering a societal problem, and that was the reason why I started the project in collaboration with a co-founder.
I'm anxiously waiting for that, and be on the lookout. I'll be on the lookout because I'll be really there to be the first one to say, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
probably had this first, and I'll tell people,
Oh,
come
definitely.
and listen here. So,
And perhaps we can even, I mean, it depends on the roles. We can, if you can fit in one of the roles, why not?
sure, we'll have that discussion offline. But then,
Oh yeah, yeah.
now, at this point, you are doing your bachelor's.
Hmm.
Then you need now you think about doing your masters, and then becoming a doctor now. You're doing your PhD.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
more precisely, you're doing this in real estate and finance, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could have wanted to ask what led you there, but then for the purpose of focusing on what actually we aim on this discussion. Now, how did you end up making an application to scholarships? Remember, I'm looking at your profile and I realize you have been to a lot of countries, not just one country. And this is, let me just put it more lightly, thanks to some funding, right? Some of these scholarships.
Yeah,
so at what point then did you decide, now I want to apply for a scholarship to pursue my studies?
It's really about strategy also. If you want the best, then you have to go for the best. I wanted a PhD that will not just give me the title doctor. As far as I'm concerned, that is not my fancy, being referred to as doc. Immediately you're done, immediately you graduate, it's fancy, or Dr. Sean, or doc, or prof. But for me, it's really about, the ability to speak confidently. The PhD opportunity, I had targeted very specifically someone I knew God would bring into my life to change, my help my destiny rather. But to be under this person, I needed the funds. I mean, I will have to pay tuition fees, and no one has that kind of money. So that was what pushed me into applying for funding, and I was very intentional about it. So I wasn't applying there. I just want to get a PhD. No, I was very intentional about. Okay, let me give you this. My girlfriend back then, in 2014 or 15, my first international conference, it was my girlfriend who she was a medical doctor then. She was the first. She was the one that gave me the money for my first international conference. Why did I go for that international conference? I had discovered that this person who was a potential doctoral supervisor, I'd seen that he's just the one that is the one that can help me to fully understand what I wanted to do in terms of my doctoral program. His name is Professor Kola Kinsami. I knew he was coming for that conference. So I traveled from Nigeria to Kumasi in Ghana. In fact, I took the bus. Everyone was flying, but I didn't mind. I, in fact, slept in the bus station because I didn't have the funds for an hotel. And I kept following this man about at the conference. I remember very well, 2015. And to cut the long story short, the rest is history. By 2017, the journey started. So between 2015, late 2015 and early 2017, just about a little above a year, which was now committed towards writing a strong and compelling research proposal. And after that, writing a strong and compelling funding application. By the way, I think for the funding, there were so many people that applied, but we were two that were funded. One was funded to Canada and I was funded to South Africa. And, that was how we started, and, ever since this is 2025, the last 7-8 years, I've never used my money to pay for flights, for, conferences, going to different countries. It's always been monies from different places.
By the way, how many scholarships have you held so far? Owen, that's if you are still counting.
I think there are, I would say almost 20. Almost 20. I got almost 20 research grants, scholarships. And by the way, some of them, I was the one naming them for the organizations.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
I read something very interesting about you, some posts you wrote on LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
About the challenges you faced while you were doing your PhD, and how sometimes the stipends were utterly insufficient. I'm using that word because I know they can be very insufficient.
Oh, yeah.
So, what was like? What was your funding package like? Before now we start breaking down how you went ahead to is it to survive or to live through the PhD process?
Fantastic. Wow. This is an emotional question, because I sometimes when these questions come up, I remember all that I went through. I had to drive a taxi. Um, I had to work as a taxi driver in the daytime and the nighttime. What happened was that I was funded by the federal government of Nigeria and to study in South Africa. So the problem stemmed from the exchange rate. I'm sorry to say this, but the fact is that those who were in charge of the funds in Nigeria, they did not manage, and I say this on authority because there are facts and there are evidences to that. The management of the funding was very, very below par, very poor, very, very poor. That after a while the government had to even find out, investigate what was happening with the funds of. I mean, I was not the only one who suffered this. So what I mean, to break it down, is that when I got the funding, it was in naira value because that's our currency, but I was to spend in rand, and the rand currency was higher than the naira value by 13 as when I got the fund. The moment I moved to South Africa, it became 32. It had tripled. You see that? And because the university, that this is how it happens. The fund will be sent from the government to my university as an academic, and then they will release the funds to me. So before the funds are released, the interest rates, the currency exchange, they had skyrocketed. In fact, to the extent of becoming about 52 naira to 1 rand. Whereas I got my fund as 13 naira to 1 rand. Just imagine that. So it was a big struggle. So what happens is this: my funder would send money to my university, my tuition. They will first pay my tuition. Now, I now become a victim of that bureaucratic process, because it has taken them long time to release the funds. Before they release the funds, the exchange rate has gone up, and by the time they pay my tuition fees, they are taken out of, because it's automatic. The university charges the account of the funder directly, so it withdraws at the rate of 52, not at the rate of 13. So my stipends, my tuition, they are lumped into an account. Do you see that? So by the time my tuition is paid, then my stipends drop significantly, to the extent that I had to be sent out of my apartment. I couldn't pay rent. I had to sleep in a mall for 3 nights. Quite a lot of things were happening then, and I had to resort to driving so that I could survive. And that was the first time that I would leave a country where I was paying rent annually to a country where I'll be paying rent monthly. It was a culture shock. So to maintain that, and to live in South Africa, you don't live in dangerous places, because there are certainly dangerous places. The dangerous places are the cheap places. They come with cheaper rental values. But if you want to live in a safe destination, and by the way, even in South Africa, I was robbed 4 times. So that is even in a safe place. So I had to move to a safe place. But to live in a safe place is expensive. So I had to drive taxis. And even while driving such taxis, the fuel will finish while the passenger is in the car. And the passengers will report me on the Uber or on the Bolt. And then my profile will be cancelled. I have to wait days and appeal. It was, and all of this, I was getting, very crazy reviews from my supervisor and co-supervisor. Very tough time. I was in depression, and just to cut long story short, it was an experience that I think got intentionally permitted that I will go through, so that I will be trained, so that I think also God was testing my stamina, because you cannot be given what you cannot carry. If you don't have the capacity to handle it, you are not given. So, and today I'm head of department of real estate. I even started the real estate department at my university. Tell me where the training. I didn't just wake up and then they made me head of department for the program real estate. But now I'm seeing that my capacities, my ability to handle administrative issues while writing lecture notes, while mentoring people, while doing this, while doing that, had stemmed from the experience. And it was because I won in the place of challenges. So that's why I've said to people today, if you are challenged and you do not win, how do you inspire those who are coming behind? You must win so you can inspire those who are coming behind you.
That is very touching.
Thank you. It's all history today.
You see, when you are packing your bags, you're going to a new country. In this case, it was South Africa. You're going there with a lot of dreams and excitement, but then you get there. I'm just trying to imagine from your perspective, because you're going to a new country. You don't have your family, you don't have your friends, so there's nobody to run to.
Yeah,
so it can be very, very challenging having to face such kind of difficulties. And now it gets me to ask then, it is almost inevitable that you are going into depression. Like, I'm not even going to pretend that I don't know that is what comes next.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Wow. I mean, my life was falling, like a pack of cards. And it's where I come from is family oriented, where you can easily just speak to your brother. You can easily go somewhere and just stay with your friends. But in the PhD journey, you're on your own, right? How did I deal with it? I had, I'll call it innovative coping mechanisms myself. Very innovative coping, mechanism. ICM. I wrote them down then. And one is what I've always shared with people. I always do it when I'm in that state. The aura, I won't call it aura, but the darkness of depression comes in, especially when those reviews come. And you also remember that, man, I'm in so much debt. I mean, I was in so much debt back then, so much debt. And then my co-supervisor from the US, an American professor, was also saying, look, this is not a PhD material. He was saying to me that he's fed up. He doesn't know what else to do about me, And when you hear that from your co-supervisor, you know what that means, right? So it was like the whole world was crashing. And my life was falling like, a pack of cards. So what I did was I always reminded myself, and that's why, before I get into that, that's why your why is so important. Your why, a PhD, is so important. Any PhD mentees today, I've always said to them, why do you want to do a PhD? Don't do a PhD. I mean, you've seen so many of my write-ups on motivations. Why do you want to do a PhD? Don't do a PhD because you just want to be referred to as a doctor. Because my why, I knew that I would be, humbly speaking, I would sit in rooms and help them with problem solving. And that has been happening. I sit with heads of government and I consult with them, tell them this is what you should do concerning this community. In specific terms, this number of women should be, trained, and this is how you should train them. So my why really helped me. So I always reminded myself, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Whenever those corrections came, let me now start. I fixed them immediately. And that's one danger with PhD students today. I know it's difficult to get corrections from your supervisor, and then fix it immediately. The best way to solving that is to fixing it immediately. I know that people say, look, when your corrections come back or reviews, just leave them, go and think. But you find out that, there's a way. Procrastination is not just a thief. It's an armed robber. Procrastination is an armed robber of time. They come and snatch time. And you must remember that when you miss a day, that has also had an effect on the timeline of destiny. I knew it had impact. So I didn't want to miss out on what I had projected, because I had projected that in 2 years, this is where I want to be. But if I missed out on this timeline, it would automatically affect, like modules or courses that you do in universities. If you fail this course, you automatically have no access to the sister course in the next semester. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I made sure that I reminded myself of my why. Then the second thing I always did was to, whenever there was a graduation, PhD graduation, I would go and sit down. I'll find someone that is graduating and just go and sit down in the hall. And then I would admire the red gown, I would just, it makes me smile. It has a therapeutic effect. It can heal you of pain. It can heal you of depression. It's a strategic, sharp, strategy to mitigate, to kill depression. So I always sat down there, and what goes on in my mind is butterflies. I'm thinking, oh, one day I'm gonna wear this gown. One day I'm gonna look into the sky and say, finally, I've done this, and then I can move on to the next frontier. I knew that my PhD was between me and global opportunities, so I did not want to miss out on those global opportunities. So those that was the second one. Then the third thing I did, I'm a believer in God. I believe in the power of prayer. No matter what your faith is, prayers they do a whole lot. They do a whole lot. So I have some certain songs that I will listen to. I'll just play them. Those were those were songs that were written from depths. You will know when a song is just about vibes, and you know when a song is really from the depths. And these were songs that were, they welled up possibilities. They reminded me that all things were possible. I also prayed to God. I didn't give up. And those were my strategies basically. It may not work for other people, but it worked for me. It really worked for me. And regardless of the challenges I went through, when my examiner reports, after you submit the final thing, it goes to examiners, and when my final report will come from the examiner, this is a professor of standing. A ranked professor of real estate in the world. He said, this is the best thesis that I've ever examined out of Africa. It's there on my thesis report. He said the rigor, the depth, everything. And guess what? A paper came out from that thesis. I submitted that paper in the UK's best journal for real estate. Best journal for real estate. And that was my job market paper. So sometimes human disappointment, you hear things like, this PhD is not for you. I heard that. You hear things like, you can't afford even the basic things of life, Sometimes while doing my PhD, I'll be looking on the floor to see if someone lost money, to see if I can pick up money. People don't believe that about me, but it happened. If I could see money someone mistakenly dropped on the floor to just buy food, or transport, or to buy fuel, those were the things. In fact, I was even dragged. I was dragged on social media because I was owing, and that was how bad it was. But okay, I think my other strategy was that I had a great friend who always, reminded me that, I had greatness and, enthused on me. He said he could see it. So every now and then, whenever I spoke to him, he was always the one reminding me, don't give up. That there's something waiting for you. There's something waiting for you. So, it really helped me. I mean, like I said, the examiner report that this is the best thesis he has ever examined, and the fact that I got two best paper awards from during my PhD, and then before I completed the PhD, I had received 3 academic positions globally.
Wow. I'm still doing my PhD, so you know how inspiring that even sounds to me as a person.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
some of these challenges, actually, they're true. We face them. I face them even as we speak, and
Yeah.
I'm having my own battles with them.
Mm. Mm.
But I was looking at your profile and I realized two things. One, you wrote a book. We'll come to that.
Mm.
But
Mm.
then you also registered the company in South Africa while you were doing. Was it while you were doing your PhD or after you were doing your PhD? How did these two things happen while you were still working on your PhD and to end up also producing one of the best papers? Also, could you please tell me about this book you wrote? And
Okay.
yeah,
Fantastic. All right, so let me start from the book I wrote. So the book I wrote was just a compendium of insights. What really helped me to get to win the DAD scholarship. So the DAD scholarship, I just stumbled on it. Right, it's just one of those days. Just in a bid to, when challenges, when they choke you, you are pushed to the wall and you need to fight back. They say winners don't quit and quitters never win. I knew that greatness was ahead, and I knew that I will be competing. And that's one thing I'm going to leave maybe after we end this podcast, is that we must always remember that you are going to compete very soon. And to compete, you need the best of the best arsenals in your, guarded around your belts, all over your body. I mean, those who go to war, they go with the best of the best, ammunition and things like that. You're going to get to interviews where it's some certain things that you will need to, put out there that will look very desirable and would, elevate you above the queue. Now, concerning the book, so the book is an offshoot, like I said, from the DAD. So that DAD exchange program scholarship that I got, I applied for it first time. No one trained me on how to write for the applications. I just sat down, and guess what? While as a student, while as an applicant for the DAD scholarship, I even invited my colleagues to teach them in a postgraduate center on how to win it. And guess what? No one applied. And sometimes as a Christian, they say the prophet is not respected in his village. So I felt like, well, I mean, we're all Africans, and perhaps they didn't see the worth in attending a session of that nature. It's like a room for work where you just go every day, do your work, your corrections. I actually presented in the presence of, I think, about 20 or 25 people, but not one person applied. And I was applied the next day. So I was just training them. This is how to apply for it. This is a great opportunity I discovered. Please apply. I was ready to even share my document. No one walked up to me. But surprisingly, I think about 4 months after, I just walked up to the same PG room in the morning around 9:13. I remember that time, and I just checked my email. The first thing I saw on my email was DAD outcome. Wow, when I checked, I almost ran mad, because that really also helped me to pay off some loans, because it was also money for me. And so my experience, how I was able to put together that application, that was what made me put together that book. I discovered that quite a lot of people had been, failing in terms of the DAD application. And guess what? Immediately I produced that book, 2 people that I mentored got the scholarship. They got the scholarship. So there's a chap called, I have the permission to call his name. His name is Oreva, Oreva. If you type Oreva, DAD, and my name, you'll find it it's online. That's what I'm saying. So And I mean, Oreva and I would spend time till about 3 a.m. Even as a student, I mentoring him in his lab. He was doing chemical engineering, PhD in chemical engineering, and I was mentoring him. We were co-PhD students, and I was mentoring him at that time. My emails that I show people when I mentor people, they are my student emails that was mentoring other people. And there are two people that got it. Toyin Farumbi as a PhD student, and Oreva, forgotten his surname now. He also got the DAD scholarship. It was mind blowing. So I knew the book was, I mean, this book was just it. That was when I now decided, look, I'm not going to sell this book. I'm just going to give it out. So I kept sharing the book for people. So I've been a DAD fellow scholar, an ambassador at different forums. I've spoken to people from Ghana, people from Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, different places, even from India. I've spoken to them. Then in terms of so that's the book. It's just the book shows the various steps that you will be guided in writing that very important document called letter of motivation. That is the most important document. There are about 7 documents, but the most important document is the letter of motivation. Your letter of motivation must be compelling. So what I did was to make it paragraphic. I said, first paragraph, this is what should be there, and I put an example there. Second paragraph, this is what. Third paragraph, fourth paragraph, fifth paragraph, this is what should be inherent, and I put examples of what I had done earlier. Then in terms of, you talked about best paper, right? How did I win the best paper awards?
Yeah. We were actually about also the company you started during the.
Yeah, the company.
Yeah.
Let's speak about the company. So the company I started is called Shelteria. And Shelteria is a mix of shelter and area. Just simple. Like Niger and area. Nigeria, right? Shelter and area. So it's really about anything that has to do with homes, investment in property. I mean, shelter is property, right? It's real estate. It was an innovative way to coin the name shelter area, Shelteria. So it started off as, I'm sure you know of Zoopla.
Yeah. I've actually used it.
Zoopla,
Yes.
yeah. Zoopla, right move. That was what Shelteria started as. So Shelteria was like your property, agency website where you could find homes in South Africa, basically South Africa. And well, I think funding stopped that, but what now started to happen was that it became a research and consulting real estate company, where what we were just doing was to help with risk mitigation, some very heavy and advanced analytical, models for solving some certain real estate problems. So it really became that. So we were about 10 in the company, and then till date we're still about 15 people in the company. There's quite a lot of things that we do behind. I mean, last year we were able to come together and put out about 7 publications last year in terms of research. So the real, I would say, the obvious, the one that everyone can see is the research element or aspect of the company. But in terms of practice, in terms of, we do all of that. In terms of consultancy, we do all of that.
Now, I've listened to you, and I'm still trying to connect the dots. How you ended in Germany? Because now this is you doing your PhD in South Africa. You've done your work. You've actually produced an excellent PhD. Then where does Germany come in? How did you end up in Germany?
So you see, that's why I said it's important to be futuristic. It's important to be strategic. Now, the individual who supervised me, Professor Kola Akinsomi, he has a relationship with. Okay, let me put it like this: there's an organization called the African Real Estate Society, we have the European Real Estate Society, we have the American Real Estate Society, and we have the International Real Estate Society. The African Real Estate Society is Africa. What that means is that we hold conferences, real estate conferences in East Africa. Next year, we're coming to Uganda. This year, September, we're going to Lagos. Last year, we went to Zambia. So it's the West Africa, is East Africa, and Southern Africa. Any country. 2 years ago, it was in Kenya, Nairobi. And now, the sponsor of that conference is a German. I would say the major sponsor of that conference is a German, Professor Schutte. That's his name, Professor Schutte. Now, I've been seeing Professor Schutte at various, because I attend the conference yearly. I've been seeing Professor Schutte yearly, annually at conferences. I'd seen the excellence that had come with this professor, and I wanted to be part of it. And, I went and I did my investigation. And then, interestingly, I discovered that my PhD, which had to do with real estate investment trusts, that was a specific topic I worked on. Real estate investment trusts are like your property stocks. They are stocks, but property in nature.
Yeah, rates.
Yeah, rates, exactly. I discovered that the story of the evolution of rates in South Africa is similar to the story of the evolution of rates in Germany. There was a commonality. And wow, I was asking myself, I think it's important to also learn from this professor. So I started to read his publications. And that's what many of the PhD students currently don't do. I wasn't in the generation of ChatGPT PhD. We were before ChatGPT. So I started to read. I think I read almost 11 or 12 of his publications, actually, on REIT. And I started to see, wow. So I looked closely at the methodological sections of his publications, and I saw something unique. It was really about his ability to bring in novel and cutting-edge models, variables, to addressing the problems in REIT. Wow. And that was it. And the next time he came for the conference, I just walked up to him at the cocktail, during the cocktail. And I said, Prof, I would like to work with you. He said, how? He said, but you're under Professor Kola. I said, yeah. There's an arrangement I'm planning, to come in as a DAD exchange scholar. And he said, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Let's work it out. Send me your proposal. So I made a proposal on what I'll be doing in Germany. I did my timeline, what DAD calls schedule of research plan. I built all of that together. And, well, he sent me an invitation letter, right? He sent me an invitation letter, and then, and that was it. I applied for the DAD scholarship, and I got it. So that was what took me to Germany.
So which year was this when you went to Germany?
2019.
Are you going for another degree?
No. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't another degree, but the way the DAD has done it is an exchange. Is like an exchange, arrangement where you get to spend a number of months or a year in Germany. After you're done, you go back to your home university. So they call the university you go to in Germany host university, and there's a home university. Your home university is the original university where you had your PhD, but then you're permitted to even put it in your CV, like I have in my CV, And I think, okay, the other thing that pulled me to Germany was that I wanted to be part of the university. They are the best in terms of real estate in Europe. They are called the International Real Estate Business School, IREBS, International Real Estate Business School. They are the second best or best real estate business school in Europe. So I said to myself, look, I want to compete in the future. I need to start getting myself armed with the best. Okay, in research, I've gotten the best papers. In teaching, I'd been awarded best lecturer. Even in South Africa, I was awarded. The University of Witwatersrand gave me an award. Something around an upcoming, a potential talent. Something. I've forgotten the name of the award now, but it was in 2019. So I said, look, I need to lock up all these opportunities, all this achievement, so that when I get to an interview, it becomes overwhelming for the panel, and they will have no choice but to say, look, this is our guy. This is our guy. So that was how I landed. And you don't have to wait till you complete your PhD to start fighting. You need to start fighting while you're on the PhD. And fighting doesn't just mean addressing corrections, addressing feedbacks. Fighting also is progressive. You are fighting forward. You are getting ready. You are arming yourself with things. You cannot give what you don't have. If you get to an interview, there are certain questions that will come that will have to take you back to note that, look, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, I've seen the vision of your university, and I believe strongly that your university is advancing to the next frontier. To advance to the next frontier effectively, they will need guys like me, because I've achieved this, and that. And that was how I got those jobs.
You see, it looks like you had a good experience in Germany, even looking at how passionate you are about it. How did this experience in Germany change your financial position and perspective of your financial standing? Remembering that when you were in South Africa, you were having issues, right? Financial issues.
Yeah.
Did this change your financial standing? And how?
Yeah.
And at what point did it change it?
I would say, thank you for that. I would say significantly it did change, because it was a lot of money, right? So to, changing euros into rands, I mean, that's quite a lot of money, right? So it significantly, because what I was doing while I was in Germany, I just had to go look for a smaller, accommodation. In fact, at some point, I discovered, I met someone who became my friend, and I was staying in his house, and I was just paying, some money. I'll call them change, because he was like, no, just come stay with me, and although he also had a girlfriend, and whenever I had a girlfriend, I had to sleep over in the university, so whenever I had made expenses in Germany, I still had enough money to pay off my loans, to pay off my debts, to just add to my tuition fee, and so on and so forth. So it was a major one for me. It was significant. Although, for others, it may be extremely significant, because your debt may not be as much as my debt, right? So it really depends. But it's a good one. I've always advised PhD students, harness the DAD opportunity, and it's really a good one.
You see, we've walked through this journey, and I feel like I'm about to graduate with you. Do you mind when people don't call you doc? Sometimes somebody just finds you, and I found you on the street. I don't know you are a doctor. If I called you, Sean or Ajayi, and I don't know, would you be offended?
No, offended? No, because you haven't offended my intellect by doing that. I mean, the title is not what makes me intelligent or smart or wise. It is what I say out. I've entered many forums, many places where there's people talking, and when I stand up to speak, there's absolute silence. That speaks volume, because you are speaking from a critical point. You have been able to ask critical questions. Before I speak, I have my chronological thoughts already, and that is what the PhD did. That I'm able to critically analyze when someone is asking a question or there's a conversation. I can analyze what the problem is, why this is the problem, why is this so important that we're discussing it now, and then how do we then solve this problem. See, those three basic questions, very basic, but with depth. That's how I've been able to even mentor many PhD students today, to the glory of God. So, to answer your question, offended, it's a capital no. I'm never offended. I mean, if you write my name as Oluwaseun, when I speak, when I do certain things, you will be forced to ask me, you know,
Yeah, I've learned that from you. And in future, when I hold that, I'll be very okay to be just called, oh my. Now, you and I are speaking from the same place,
mm,
in that you are in England,
mm,
in London,
mm,
and you are speaking as a lecturer. You run a
mm,
department that is very serious.
mm,
How did you get here?
mm.
I'm speaking from a professional point of view. Yeah.
Yeah. How did I get here? Wow. When people say, well, it's the grace of God, people would be like, no, 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 tell us there must be something. But the truth of the matter, the first thing I always revert to is, no, I do not take for granted the grace of God. The grace of God is so, so, so important. That's one. And then in addition, it's really about mentorship. It's a very simple answer, and I'll break it down. Mentorship, mentorship. How did I move from Africa to the UK? It's really about understanding that, look, so I got information from a mentor saying you can get a job I came in as a senior lecturer years ago, before completing my PhD. Whereas some people hold the thought that you must have completed your PhD or you must even have a PhD to become a senior lecturer. That's not true. That's a misconception. I just employed someone last year, September, and he doesn't have a master's and he's a senior lecturer. There are ways to doing these things. Like I said earlier, my mentor had compressed decades, not one decade, decades of knowledge into actionable wisdom. My mentor's hindsight became my foresight. So my mentor, based on his experience, told me, if you want to go into academics, you want to become this and that, these are the things you should be doing now as a PhD student. So in research, I asked, what should I be doing? He said, ensure that you are publishing at least one paper a year. It doesn't have to be a journal article. It could be a conference proceeding. It's significantly desirable. Significantly desirable. There are two things recruiters look out for. Number one, your essential skills. Number two, your desirable skills. Those two things. You see, where the push comes to shove, or where a decision is now to be taken about who should we take, it is the desirable skills that help you win, not the essential skills. Essential skill, an example is, or requirement or achievement is, you have a PhD. That's essential. Desirable is you got best paper award. That is desirable. Because what the recruiters want or employers want is the best. After all, those who become first are the best, right? So my mentor said to me, apart from publishing, make sure that you get a best paper award. Even if you don't get a best paper award, publish in a Q1 journal. At least a Q2 journal. Q2 journal. So those were things I was doing it strategically. And they told me the key theme areas I should be publishing in. These areas are the areas you should focus on. Before people are started to talk about technology and AI, I had started to think about that. I started to bring that into my research. So how did I win the Best Paper Award? I simply went the narrative of interdisciplinary approach to research. And that's what I did. So I merged accounting principles and real estate principles. It was difficult. But how did I do that? I simply examined a real estate problem and I used accounting models to solve the real estate problem. It was novel, the first of its kind ever in Africa. In Africa, Ely model, Jones model, modified Jones model, industry model. I can't remember the fifth model now. But these were the models I used to argue that this problem in real estate can be solved using these models. And it got best paper award. I mean, after all, that was what they said to me. And in terms of teaching certifications, if you want to become a lecturer, there's a teaching certification, and the training is actually going to start on the 25th of April on the platform. So I'm collaborating with the body in the United Kingdom that regulates best practices in lecturing. These are the guys that teach you how to lecture. These are the guys that let you understand the teaching pedagogies, teaching philosophies, what motivates the way you teach. When you get into a class, why do you teach the way you teach? I'm collaborating with them as an ambassador and a partner. The head of international partnerships is the one who is going to run it. I'm the chairman of the session on the 25th of April. I think it's on a Friday. I think lunchtime, 12 noon. I've invited quite a lot of people. I don't think you've seen it. I've shared the link also. So these were the secrets I knew right from time. All right. But it was expensive for me right from Africa. It was to the tune of about, I think, 500 pounds. And you know, 500 pounds is a lot of money in Rand or in Naira. So what I did, the option he told me was, take up lecturing. Okay, I've lectured in Nigeria. He said, take up lecturing roles in South Africa too. Take up lecturing roles in South Africa and ensure that your lecturing roles, they reflect that you are a great lecturer. So I ensured that my students in Nigeria, I had been awarded Best Lecturer Award in Nigeria. And then in South Africa, they didn't give me the award of Best Lecturer. But from what they call teaching evaluation, my teaching evaluation report was fantastic. It was excellent. So I, you know, this is what I'm saying now. I now blended all together. Put Best Paper, Best Lecturer Award, teaching evaluation report. And then I got engaged in things that students would naturally not get engaged in. Let me give you a secret. I was engaged in the accreditation. I helped them with accreditation. Go and ask most PhD students. They only know of the term accreditation, but many of them I've got the experience. Accreditation exercise is an exercise that an employer wants to leave to you, and please, it's too hectic, go and handle it. So they need people that have had that experience. So when they saw it on my CV, they'd be like, as a PhD student, you are doing accreditation? How? Because the panel, the review or the interview panel was shocked. They were like, Sean, can you walk us through how you carried out accreditation? And I simply did it. I told them I was mapping the modules, the units of all the modules in the department. I was mapping them against the the requirement from the regulatory bodies. And it's as simple as that. It's very hectic because you do it through Excel. As I said, I printed it, I did this. Wow, amazing. And today, I've successfully run the accreditation project because I started the department in January 2024. And I commenced accreditation for the real estate program in, I think, June last year. And we have completed it. It's now successful. Now look at, do you see? So sometimes when you get yourself involved in very hectic things, you are trained. See it as an avenue of the fact that you have been trained. When a farmer misses his planting season, harvest is null. If you have not planted at some point, if you have a land and you don't plant, the devil is also a farmer. He will come and plant. And what he plants there will be mediocrity of its highest order. But when you plant, you will harvest. You will certainly get into the harvest. And I think that's what I'm harvesting today. The ability to become, or the capacity to have been appointed as, course leader or head of department or the lead, is the fact that they saw tangible value. Value that you can hold, not just hearsay. I've done this, but if you cannot give evidence of the things you have done, you won't be appointed. So they could see that, because what I was doing was that I intentionally made sure that the lecturers who gave me the accreditation rules sent me emails. Those were my evidence. Those are my evidences. So I screenshot them and then I'll put them on my application document for lecturing to say, look, I've carried out accreditation. It's a step higher. I've put my head, if all applicants were on the same par, then that skill alone has raised me up. It has raised me up. Because they need people. An employer doesn't want someone that they will now have to now train again. They need someone who is ready-made, who can hit the ground running. So for me, I was ready. I always allowed opportunities to find me in the place of preparation. I was always ready. I always made sure opportunities found me in the place of preparation. I was always ready. Any job application I saw and I looked at the requirements, I just smiled. I've done this and I have the evidence. I've mentored this person and I have the evidence. Recently, I started mentoring someone in January, and now he got $110,000 to the US. That has changed his life, and is moving to the US in June. There's another lady from India. I've never met her before, and my mentee also. She got 80,000 euros to go to Dublin. She's going to Ireland. Our first time leaving India. Evidential reports, they are very, very necessary. Mentoring got me here. So while I was senior lecturer at Oxford, I was also engaged in activities that will propel me, that will push me ahead. An example of that was, doing so much of research, and then doing so much of training myself in research grants. Because after scholarships, the next level for an academic is research grants. Scholarships would be like your 100,000, 80,000, 50,000 pound dollars. But research grants, we're talking about millions. And so while I was at Oxford, I was also getting ready. I was training myself. As I used to apply, I was getting rejections. But the moment I got to London Met, within 10 months, I had attracted a research grant. So let me wrap up with this, for your question. You must live up to the responsibility. You must live up to the hype. The hype of wherever you are at the moment, the level you are. As a PhD student, you must live up to the hype. The hype goes beyond just replying emails of your supervisor. It goes beyond just addressing concerns. I'm talking about taking up responsibilities as a panel chair in a conference. You can write to a conference organizer, I would like to chair this panel. That's a significant responsibility. And guess what? Because of that leadership experience, today I'm a guest editor of a journal. Of course, definitely you know who a guest editor is. Not so different from an editor. And that's huge. So, by God's grace, my ultimate is to become the youngest vice chancellor in this country, youngest African vice chancellor in this country. And to become that, my father contested 3 times to becoming a vice chancellor in Africa. He didn't win. He was a favorite, but he didn't win. Politics. But every application, every time he applied, I was significantly involved. So what did I learn from my father's journey? I learned that I should not make the same mistakes he made, because there were some loopholes I discovered from his journey, and I decided, no, I will not make such mistakes. So those are the things I'm always thinking. As I sit with you, I'm in 2034. I'm in 2035. How? Because when I sit down with my mentor, I become 10 years wiser from a 45 minutes discussion. 10 years wiser.
Doc,
yeah.
You spoke about grants, research grants, and I know it's through research grants that you get to hire PhD candidates, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
When somebody approaches you that would I be your PhD candidate?
Yeah.
In brief, because also we are running out of time, what exactly would you be looking at in this candidate to ascertain if this is an ideal candidate to be my student?
Fantastic. Straightforward, innovative thinking. That's just my answer. Innovative thinking, your ability to think outside the box. Because a PhD, this is not masters we're talking about. You are not about to reinvent the wheel. You're about to invent. And invention means you are going to fail like 999,000 times before you get it done. So if I don't see seriousness, my definition, my signature, my portrait of seriousness is resilience. That I'm able to give you, when you see my feedback in terms of PhD, people run. And I tell them, please, in fact, before I send my feedback to people, I tell them, I hope you don't get intimidated when you see my feedback. It is constructive, it is fine, but it is sometimes very critical and harsh. And that is to help the student. That was what I passed through. So if I cannot see that a student is still willing to pursue regardless, if a PhD candidate cannot say, nonetheless, that I'm going through this, nonetheless, I will pursue. Nonetheless, I would be innovative. I'll make sure something new comes out of this. I'll make sure something novel comes out of it. If I don't see that, and there are ways to seeing this. Number one is your methodological process, your methodological approach to maybe a debilitating research question you've asked. If there are no innovative models, if there's no signature of innovation or novelty in your methodological section, you will likely not work with me, because that's where the strength is. We have known the problem. What is the problem? We have known why this problem is significant, why we need to solve the problem now. But how to solve the problem has always been the issue. After all, why do we call it research? We call it research because people that have searched, research is re and search. When you have re in front of any word, it means it's been done already, but we are saying do it again. Re-examine is it's been examined before, let's do it again. Re-strategize means it's been strategized, let's strategize, but it looks like the way we strategized earlier was not sustainable, let's do it again. So research means you are search, there is examine, investigate, assess, all right? And it means, okay, it's been assessed by Joseph earlier, let's reassess it, let's do it again. So that how question is very important. If you can show me what people have done innovatively and can now tell me this is what you're bringing to the table. It's usually, that question that ladies say, what are you bringing to the table? Why me? If you can answer that how question, this is how I'm going to solve the problem. Oh, fantastic.
Well, if I was going back to apply for a PhD, probably I'll be I'll be considering taking this in and drop you an email after this conversation, but we will have another conversation. Now, you have been a professor. Okay, you have been a lecturer for some time. And you are way high up the ranks. What does a typical day look like to you as a professor? So you've just woken up in the morning, then what?
That is a big one. A typical day is emails, responses to emails, writing, and movies. So that's my social and work balance. This thing that people say. Sometimes when I'm to forestall against a sedentary lifestyle, I would stand up, because once I stand up, I do my devotions, I eat, and then you'll see me on my table, my work table, and in front of my laptop, ready-made, typing, replying emails, replying mentees that have sent in their work. I'm reviewing, because my mentees, they run a package with me 3 months, and we do it together. So I don't work for them like an agent. You pay me and then go out. No. We work together. I give you assignments, you do it, I'll review it. It's a way to train you so you can become better than I've become. So, and then after I've done that, you find me maybe downstairs, on Netflix or on one of these streaming platforms watching a movie. After I'm done watching a movie, I'm back. And sometimes you can still catch me awake awake till about 2 a.m. sometimes, and then I'm awake again around 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m.
You see, through this conversation, if there's one word that if I was to run an analysis, if there's one word that will come up very, very often, is the word mentorship. And I know it's something very important because it helps you see things that you couldn't have seen otherwise.
Absolutely.
But then I've listened to you, and I would love to network with you. I'd love to connect with you, and hopefully at some point when I need it, I become your student. How can I connect with you? What platforms can I use to network with you as an individual?
Okay. On LinkedIn, I'm there on LinkedIn. I show up daily on LinkedIn because there's an expectation. The expectation is not from human beings, but the expectation is from the algorithms. I've come to understand how the algorithms work. I know when to post, how many posts to make, at what time to post. I've come to understand them. And it's not to be popular, but it's to make value popular. Because there's a way the algorithms of LinkedIn works that when you make a post, it goes to the ends of the earth. And there are certain times when you post, it makes no difference, right? And they are very significant posts. So people can, network, connect with me on LinkedIn. Also on Instagram, I'm on Instagram. Well, people trace, I don't know how they do that, but they trace me down to Instagram. They find me on Instagram, and I'm like, really? But what I do on Instagram basically is just I laugh at memes because when I leave LinkedIn, I go to Instagram to just laugh at comics, skits. Those are things that really help me regulate, my being alive. So LinkedIn basically number one is my connect platform. I wish I was quite frequent and committed to my X, but I think X became quite toxic at some point, so I decided, look, I'm not going to do X now. So Instagram is another place to connect with me. I try to give out my number to a few people, and these are deserving people, perhaps maybe my mentees, individuals that maybe we've now struck a certain type of relationship, professional career progression. Those are the kind of people I give out my number to. It's not pride, but the fact that, look, at this stage of my life, I can't afford to waste time. That's a very important currency. So that's why I don't share my contact with a lot of people, but just a few people. You, for instance, you belong to that category now where I can say, yes, direct. We have a direct, relationship, and it doesn't have to be through LinkedIn before you get across to me or before I get across to you. So those are the platforms that people can reach me.
Yeah, to the listeners, please check the description of this video. We usually leave links to our to the platforms for our guests, and you can find links to his socials that he has mentioned. And if you want to connect with him and have a chat, of course, he's very available. Not very available, but very reachable on LinkedIn. So please try to reach him out there. Now, when we close our podcasts, there are two important things that we want our audience to know. The first thing is that for a person who has listened to you for a maximum, at least 60 minutes, this person has seen something important to learn from you and something useful they can get from you. But then also, there's somebody you as an individual look up to, somebody who you get inspired by. And once we are closing our podcast, we usually ask our guests to recommend somebody in their network who they think has an amazing story or something of inspiration that our audience can learn from. This is somebody in your network. And I'm sure by mentioning that, you've had somebody's name come to your mind. So who would this person be, and why should our listeners expect to get this person on the podcast?
Thank you. So this person is someone that is a serial grant winner, a serial scholarship winner, He's also had a journey of resilience, and I think that's one currency that a whole lot of people need today, whether as an early career professional, whether as an early career enthusiast, whether as an early career academic. Scholarship is very important, because scholarship takes you to those rooms where you would ordinarily not get to. I mean, rooms like, rooms in Oxford, rooms in Cambridge, rooms you know what I mean. So it is scholarship that will take you there, whether as, like I said, maybe for an MBA or for an MSc. So this person is Nigerian. He is someone that I've worked with directly, and beyond that, he has passion, right? So it's something for you to be a tank of knowledge. It's another thing for you to be willing to open. I mean, be open to people opening your tap to draw from. So this is someone who, and if, in actual fact, he just launched his book, and I think perhaps you must have seen that on LinkedIn. His name is Dr. Babajide Milton Macaulay. This is a great friend and brother. He's achieved a lot for himself. He's currently in Nigeria. I beg your pardon. He has won scholarships. He has mentored others towards scholarships, right? There's a way he does it, and I think it's only him that can speak about it. But I'm very critical about people I recommend, but I know certainly I'm confident in him, in his abilities. It's also someone that you can sit with, and they can tell you their story. Not everyone has a story. Not everyone has a story. I'm sorry to say this, but that's the truth. I've seen many people on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, this is how to win a scholarship. This is how to," but they've only won one scholarship. They've only won one scholarship, right? I'm not saying they shouldn't do that, but sometimes experience, when it's in a cocktail form, those are the stronger motivating platforms. Those are the ones that can tell you, look, before I got this was what happened to me, and this is what I did to achieve this. So I'm not trying to hype myself or a few other people that have got a cocktail of such experience, but I mean, this was what I enjoyed from people who mentored me. I was very intentional about individuals who enjoy exposure in teaching, exposure in research, exposure in scholarships, exposure in higher education management. I mean, my mentor, when I started the department, told me, because there were other universities that were offering the same real estate in London, and I said to him, how do I compete? Prof, I don't know. How do I do this? How do I attract students? And he gave me just a sentence. He said, go and integrate this into your curriculum. And that was it. And we are where we are today.
I understand the author of the Scholarship Bible. Is it the Scholars Bible or the Scholarship Bible?
Scholars
So,
Bible. Yeah,
to our guests,
yeah.
you know who to expect next. A multi-award winning guest who has also written the Scholars Bible. And that simply means one more guide to take you through your academic journey. There is a word of inspiration. So as we close the podcast, very briefly, what would that sound like?
I said it earlier. When a farmer misses his planting season, harvest is null. It's as simple as that. I'll leave the viewers to decode what that means. When you miss your planting season, harvest is null.
I won't dilute it anymore. So thank you for joining the podcast. And that was Dr. Oluseun Ajayi. And this is the Management Diary. I'm your host, Omae Joseph. And until we meet again in the next episode, bye-bye.